when you start to not care about money, all these things that like society tells you you need to care about, you just start seeing the real need and like, okay, if it takes $50 out of my pocket or if it takes a week out of my schedule to go do this, it's whatever. Let's just do it.
Exploring the landscape of modern missions. This is Field Notes, a podcast by Mission Discovery.
I mean, I go in front of the mirror and I just stare at myself for at least an hour every day.
That's not
Please put that in the intro.
And I just look at it and go, "You are beautiful."
My daughter's brilliant. That's all I gotta say.
She's kind of brilliant.
She's putting together 60-piece puzzles now. So there you go.
Are you serious?
Still not potty trained, but you can
She pees on herself, but besides that, she's a genius.
Some of the most brilliant people in the world pee on themselves, and that's okay.
All right. Well, you keep thinking I'm gonna actually start the podcast now.
I mean, it started 11 minutes ago. So.
It did start 11 minutes ago, but then normally we say something to the effect of, "Hey, everybody, welcome to the Field Notes podcast. I'm Michael Neff.
I'm Hailey Hofstetter."
Hailey Hofstetter hates it when I do this intro because she thinks it's cringe. But I just want you all to know that we're so glad that you're checking us out. Today, we have our good friend Josh Clancy with us. Josh is a project coordinator with Mission Discovery. He's been a good friend of mine for... Josh, how long have we been friends?
I want to say about 20 years almost.
20 years almost, yeah. We go way back to Reynosa, Mexico days of Mission Discovery. You were an intern. I don't know what my role was at that point. Was I the intern director at that point?
You wore a few different hats that summer, but yeah, intern director was one of them. Probably one of my favorite memories from back then was, I think we were talking about it not too long ago, but trying to carry all the lumber for one house, like sheets of plywood, right? So all the sheeting for the floor, all the sheeting for the walls, and all the sheeting for the roof. And we try to carry it in one big stack, just the two of us. And I think we made it like 10 feet before my feet just went out and all the plywood went down and actually raked down Michael's legs. So I'm sure it left a nice mark for him to remember me by, and it hurt my back.
Yeah, we were younger and not very smart. Good times. But we have you on today because we're just talking to people about their experiences with missions, how they got started, things like that. The first question we like to ask our guests is similar to what we ask all of our groups when we're out on projects every night, which is, how have you seen God today? Or in your case, how have you seen God recently?
Yeah, last week I was actually with two great groups down in Antigua, Guatemala. And, just going on the trip, you never know how two different groups are going to gel with each other. Plus, add in, you have different backgrounds. You had one group that was from a Catholic school, all boys. And then you had another group that was from a Lutheran school that was majority girls. So you just didn't know how that was going to work together. And then myself, my church is, a Baptist church. Our worship leader was brought up Presbyterian. So you just had all these different backgrounds. But the beautiful thing is, when you're going and you're serving God and you're actively seeking Him every day, all those backgrounds and things that we label ourselves disappear. And by the end of the week, everybody was just one big family. We laughed together, we cried together, and it was a really good week.
Yeah, that's great. I know I've spent a lot of time down in Guatemala with the Catholic boys school up from Middletown, Connecticut, and they're such a great group. But I know when I heard that they were going to be doing the week alongside another group, I had some thoughts about, I wonder how that's going to go. Sounds like it was a good week. Was there a lot of sharing of kind of different traditions and stuff that happened throughout the week?
There was, yeah. Usually when I have like two groups of different backgrounds, I try to incorporate something from each of their church. For the Lutheran group, they're more on the contemporary-ish side. So we just kind of ran our meetings traditional Mission Discovery style with some contemporary worship, with some hymns built in there. And then to kind of rope in with the Catholic boys, they usually do a prayer service in the morning. And it's just really nice to just kind of gather as a group. And Brother John is really good about typing everything out for everybody day by day. So there's a reading and a response, and then the prayer. So we were all able to come together and do that as one body.
I think the real serious question here is, was there any romance going on with this entire girls group and
You know,
guys?
Haley, I'm gonna say no. The boys, I mean, they go to an all boys school, so there's some shyness, I'm sure, there around when you get a bunch of girls that come in. But I did get to see them interacting with each other, and there's one student who I was with last year out in Rapid City, and he was really kind of just a little bit shy into himself. And this year, I really got to see him come out of his shell. He was, playing ball with some of the girls, and, even in CBS we were doing at the school, they had a big dodgeball game going on, and he won the dodgeball game. So to just kind of see him like running through the school, both hands up, like screaming, "Yeah!" I was like, this is not the same kid from last year.
That's a really cool part, I guess, of being a project coordinator year after year is you have students who come with you 1 week for 1 year, and then they come the next year, and as teenagers from year to year, your life can completely change and you can be completely different. So
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Josh, you're talking quite a bit about what you were doing last week as a project coordinator with Mission Discovery. But backing up a little bit, can you tell us and our listeners just a little bit about where you came from, your background, and how your background kind of brought you to doing the things that you're passionate about doing today?
Yeah. I mean, so I grew up in just south of Boston, Massachusetts. So when I was younger, I wasn't old enough to go on a trip, but my father would actually go on mission trips, and he would go down to Reynosa, Mexico. And every once in a while, the founder of Mission Discovery would come up to our area, and he would speak at different churches, and he would stay with us. So I'd get to hear stories from him. I'd hear stories from my father. Even my mother and my brother had all gone on mission trips, and I was the only one that never got to go on one until I was 14. I went to Reynosa, Mexico for the first time. They felt like I was finally ready. And I was so pumped after hearing all these stories and all this stuff of like going and experiencing it. And I got there and I thought it was terrible. I never wanted to do it again. I got stuck with a group. So I was a staff child because my father was a contractor. And there was another member of Mission Discovery staff there, and his son and me are the same age. They stuck us in with another group, the same group, and they just weren't that welcoming. That, and I was an awkward teenager, let's face it. So I just kind of felt like, you know what, this mission thing, like, it might be cool for them, but I don't know why, and I'm good. I don't want to do it again. Went home. The next year, my church signed up to go down, and the kids in the youth group were saying like, "Oh, you gotta come, you gotta come," and I was like, "All right, fine, I'll go." So the next year, I got to go back, but now I was with my friends, my youth group. I didn't have those blinders on like I did the year before, and I really got to see God at work that week through the family that we built a home for, to the other groups around us. It was just a really impactful week into my life. And then after that, I just kept trying to do mission trips. And then even when I got older, my parents divorced, and there was a season where I kind of had anger in my heart. So I just kind of stopped wanting, I didn't want to hear people talk about God to me, like, God has a reason for all this. So I just stopped going to church. But in that, I just had this desire in my heart to go and serve. So I got to intern for the very first time for Mission Discovery. And then I just kept on interning. That actually helped bring me back into church. And God really spoke to me during those years. I remember the first year I interned, all summer long, I was just praying. I want to hear God's voice. I want to hear him speak to me. Like, you always hear people talk about God told me or God revealed to me. And I'm like, I never had one of those moments. That summer, as I was praying, I just want to hear God's voice. All the interns were in the snack shack, and I forget what the prayer actually was that night. We're closing up our debrief time, and they were probably praying for like good weather for the next day, for all I know. And I just remember feeling these arms wrapping around me and hearing it's okay. And I just started bawling, and I didn't know why. It was just this overwhelming feeling. And then everybody came around me, and I'm like, well, this is embarrassing now. I'm crying, and I don't know why. But, that really moved me. There's a moment you reach that your heart has changed and you know what you're supposed to do. So you keep pursuing that further and further, even though you don't know what it looks like.
So what was kind of the next thing that you stepped into then? Because you were going on these mission trips, but it wasn't your full-time job. So what did you do after you left your parents' house?
Yeah, I mean, I positioned myself in a restaurant working there so I could do more mission stuff. It allowed me to take a few summers off and I would just intern with Mission Discovery. And then after that, I got into the electrical field. It'd been something that I'd done off and on in my life. So I got back into the electrical field and all my vacation time. I don't think I took an actual vacation, like maybe one on a cruise. All my other vacation time was doing Mission Discovery stuff. You reach an age at Mission Discovery where you don't get to intern anymore because, having a 30-year-old as an intern is kind of creepy. I'd started being like the worship guy. So, like, Jimmy and Michael would call me and have me come on trips with them to lead worship, but I would also be a contractor as well. So, kind of like double dutied. And it just kept going from there until just before it was 2019. So, 2019, Jimmy Rivera made the comment to me, I think you should come on staff at Mission Discovery. And at that time, my pastor and I were talking, and he was trying to figure out a way for me to come on staff at the church I attend part time. And I was like, well, my pastor wants me to come on part time at the church. And he's like, no, you don't want to do that. You want to come on full time. I didn't know what to think of that because he didn't talk anymore after that. So that was like in February of 2019. We talked a little bit more during the summer. I got to go down to Puerto Rico and run a trip for them. And then in the fall, me and him sat down and talked more about it. And we entered a season of prayer, which led us into February of 2020. February 2020, we were in Puerto Rico. We had a group from Long Island, New York. And at the end of the week, me and Jimmy sat down and just kind of talked about what we've been praying about. And we both just felt like, God's calling me to this next step, which is something that has always been in my heart, like this desire to go work for Mission Discovery. But it's not like we just open up and put an ad in the paper and say we're hiring. Usually most people are asked at Mission Discovery to become a project coordinator. There's no steps or like path, like this is how you do it. So I'd always kind of struggle with that a little bit, like, how do I get there? How do I get there? And now it's there and we're having this conversation. And Jimmy told me, I'll be in touch in the next couple weeks. Well, I went home and Jimmy called me a few weeks later and the world had shut down at that point. COVID had hit. And he said, there's no job to offer. And I don't know what the future will bring, but we're all in this together. And it really took 2 years for that conversation to come back. So I came back in February of 22 and I quit my job as an electrician in May of 22 and embarked on fundraising. Because, you go from a job of the paycheck is just a paycheck. The company makes money and they pay it to you and everything's good. And now you got to go into this world of, I need to fundraise what I'm going to get paid. So that's a little different, but it's been a great journey. And I officially went on staff full time February 15th of 2023.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting how you kind of said that you were interested in working full time at Mission Discovery for a long time, but didn't really know that next step. And it seems like you had positioned yourself in a way that your life was really just revolving around, like, how can I have time to serve the kingdom? Like, whether that's at church or whether that's using all my vacation time to go on mission discovery trips, like, how can I position what I'm doing in my secular job to allow me to do more direct work for the kingdom? And that's just really cool. So why do you think it was like that for you?
I feel like it could resonate with a lot of people who go on their first mission trip and their hearts changed. Your heart has changed from focusing more of like what you want to what God wants. You reach a point where, it's like having sugar. You have a little bit and it's like, oh, I want more sugar. This Coca-Cola is great. And, God definitely opens up the opportunities, but sometimes we don't get to see them in front of us.
Josh, I think I can say this with a fair amount of certainty, having been on a lot of mission projects with you. which is out of just about anybody I know, serving comes so natural to you. You are always one who is the first to kind of step in and help, to see a need and to just step up into that. And I think that's been a really big asset for you on mission discovery trips. Can you pinpoint why it is that you're such a good servant, why you have such a servant's heart?
Yeah, I mean, as you were saying that, I was like thinking in my head back to like different trips and everything. I think one of the things, and you're going to laugh when I say this, but I'm serious, I don't care about money. Right? So, like, when you start to not care about money, all these things that, like, society tells you need to care about, you just start seeing the real need and, like, okay, if it takes $50 out of my pocket or if it takes a week out of my schedule to go do this, it's whatever. Let's just do it. It's a need. God's opened my eyes to it. So I need to be reactive to what he's shown me. And I say that jokingly, but it is kind of true. Even going into working for Mission Discovery, it's, we don't get paid a lot of money, which is fine because it's not about getting a paycheck. It's about what we do and the people that we work alongside.
But that isn't that's not always the case, right? So I don't know. What would you say would you say there's something that drives you towards that?
Obviously, like the Sunday school answer, like God is a driver, right? I don't know. I just feel like even from a young age, I don't know why my eyes are open. Like I can project sometimes what the next need is. Like I remember working alongside my father and like he'll be working on the tractor or something. And I could project like, okay, he's going to need this wrench next. And I would just get the wrench and like just have it there. I just didn't want him to, all right, I got to look for this now. Like I saw the need and I just met the need. And then like even going forward, I'm thinking even out in Rapid City, South Dakota, like, okay, they need lights in the warehouse. Okay, I do electrical. So I'll just do my time. I mean, not do my time, but I'll do what God has gifted me with, knowing about electrical, and I can fulfill this need. That's something I can do for them. It's not part of like the bigger picture of what we're doing there this week, but it's part of my picture this week.
Well, Josh, thanks so much for taking the time to hang out with us today. Something that we do at the end of each Field Notes podcast episode is we ask those we are interviewing, what is something that has been inspiring you lately? So, is there a book you've been reading, a song you've been listening to, someone in your life? What has been giving you inspiration lately?
That's a good question. I think something that's been inspiring me lately, and it's not even something, it's people. I'm not married, I'm not a father, but you think about those moments, those interactions, like if I had kids someday, or even how I interact with people, and getting to spend time with Nathan, the president of Mission Discovery, a little bit more, and even Michael being down at your house, just seeing the way you guys interact with your children, how you're patient and calm, even when your child is throwing a fit and being loud, and you want to just scream back, right? That's our natural reaction. But seeing the way you just hold that peace and just say, no, we're not going to do that right now. And there's a calmness to it. So I feel like for me, seeing that in this season, and I've seen it in you guys before, I think it's hit me differently this year because this year is just started off busy for us. So in the midst of the craziness, you kind of want to freak out. But I just remember those moments of just, no, we're not going to do that right now. And that peace and that calmness. And I think that's God with us a lot of the times too, right? We kick our feet and we scream, and he's just patient and kind and gentle with us. So it's definitely been hitting me a little bit differently observing you guys.
Aw, Josh, thank you. That's very nice. Thanks. I appreciate that. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. I know Hailey probably doesn't wants us to cut this part out. Usually she just ends the recording. But yeah, Josh, thank you so much for
Ending
joining.
it right now.
Thank you for listening to Field Notes, a podcast by Mission Discovery. For more information about who we are and how you can get involved, visit our website at missiondiscovery.org.